Cooking with fats and oils. Got Dr. Whiting here today to discuss fats and oils. There is so much controversy, misinformation out there on the internet, even on the news. It seems like they don't even understand cooking with fats and oils and the controversy surrounding fats and oils. Let's start off by just discussing fats and oils.
The different kinds. I think that's important.
Yeah.
There are three basic categories of fats. One is saturated. Saturated fats can be recognized generally as solid at room temperature. Butter, lard, etc.
Okay.
Then there's the polyunsaturated fats, which are on the other end. And then there are...
poly means it's probably plastic?
Not necessarily. It refers to the molecular structure.
Okay.
But, and then the third one, which is kind of in the middle, is what we call monounsaturated. So as a general rule...
Well, what's an example of monounsaturated?
Avocado oil, olive oil.
Okay.
And
so olive oil is a good one.
Yes. The oils that you wish and should be avoiding to any extent are the unsaturated fats and the polyunsaturated fats and oils, because because of their molecular structure, they become rancid and oxidized very easily.
Okay.
And through that oxidation and rancidity, free radicals are formed. And those free radicals, when they enter the body, can cause a whole host of health problems over time.
So knowing that we should avoid the polyunsaturated, you just said that olive oil is also unsaturated.
So monounsaturated.
Oh, okay. Mono.
And those are very good, very healthy. They make up the basis of what we call the Mediterranean healthy diet.
So then the safest, then somebody is fair to assume that the olive oil is the safest mono.
That and avocado oil, yes.
Okay. And so don't even think, do they have avocado oil on the grocery store aisles?
Yep.
Oh.
It used to be harder to find.
Okay.
But now it's becoming increasingly popular. And so you can get it in most supermarkets now. And
the one you should avoid at all costs would be the poly.
Right. Corn oil, safflower oil.
Okay.
All the oils that the food industry has pushed and peddled on us for decades.
So that's also margarine.
Margarine is saturated, polyunsaturated oil.
Whoa.
So it's got a double bad problem connected with it.
Yeah.
Because it's been artificially saturated, so it's solid at room temperature, so it spreads just like real butter. Keep in mind that margarine is one molecule away from plastic.
From plastic, yeah. And that's the thing that I've heard repeated on, news, social media, that polyunsaturated is one molecule away from plastic.
Especially when they make it into margarine, yeah.
Okay. And so that's really the only ones you should avoid? So the best ones would be the olive oil, avocado oil,
and saturated oils to in moderation. So animal fats.
Okay.
Which are very healthy because of their molecular structure. They do not oxidize and they do not form free radicals.
Okay. And so what is the safest way to store oils? I mean, olive oil, yeah, you have it in the bottle, you keep it on the counter.
Yeah, because it's a monounsaturated, it's very stable at room temperature.
Yeah.
If, heaven forbid, you choose to have polyunsaturated oils in your house, which is kiss of death in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if you should, corn oil, safflower oil, you have to keep them ice cold. Keep them in the refrigerator. Because the higher the temperature goes, the more oxidation occurs and the more free radicals are formed. Which is why when you choose to cook with oil, you should never, ever cook anything in unsaturated or polyunsaturated fats. That would be corn oil. So if, let's say you got a deep fryer and you want to make some French fries.
Yeah. Fried chicken.
Or fried chicken. Then you want to use avocado oil because it has a high, what we call a high smoke point. You never want to use corn oil and things like that, because when you heat them, the oxidation and the free radicals we talked about, it increases those at least tenfold.
And that leads to free radical damage, leading
to the cellular tissues of your body.
And then leading to inflammation. And
leads indirectly to inflammation. It can alter and mutate the DNA of your living cells. These free radicals from vegetable oils, from unsaturated vegetable oils, are the number one cause of heart disease worldwide.
And so I'm going to ask the question everyone's thinking out there. Isn't cooking fried chicken and avocado oil going to change my chicken flavor?
No. No, it's not. Avocado oil is probably has less
flavor than olive oil?
Flavor or aftertaste than some olive oils.
Yeah. Well, some olive oils are amazing.
Oh, well, yeah. And it's just if you're cooking donuts, you may not want them to taste like olives, but I would use avocado oil. Because it has a higher smoke point, which is very important. Especially if you're going to heat the oil above 350 degrees. You definitely want to use avocado oil.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you use olive oil, you're just going to smoke up your kitchen.
Yeah. Because that's not
it's too hot.
Yeah. So let's say you haven't been doing exactly what you should be doing. You've been dabbling in all of them, and you're just seeing a video like this, or you're just starting to find the real knowledge. What nutrients, nutritionally, can we do to combat the free radical damage that you've already done for the past 5 years, that you've already done for the past 10 years?
Yeah,
what nutritionally can you do?
There's two things that we can do. First and foremost, antioxidants.
Okay, like what?
Well, there's so many of them. Vitamin C is one. There's a whole host of NAC is a wonderful one. N-acetylcysteine. There's a whole host of what we call antioxidants and free radical scavenging nutrients.
Okay. Even if you've been doing it for years.
Here's the problem. One of the places in the body that free radicals from vegetable oils go is the arteries of your cardiovascular system. In fact, free radicals from unsaturated fats is the number one cause of occlusion or narrowing of the arteries, because it causes free radical damage to the muscle wall of your arteries. And once that damage occurs, the body then begins to lay down calcium ions like a bandage to prevent hemorrhage. And then when normal, healthy, wonderful cholesterol is flowing through your body, it gets ionically attracted to calcium, and it's like an Oreo cookie, and it keeps building up layer after layer after layer after layer, and pretty soon you've got 70% blockage of your artery.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, there are ways that can be addressed without surgical intervention if it's soon enough. There's intravenous chelation, in which they infuse chelating agents into your veins. That agent removes calcium. Once the calcium is removed, cholesterol no longer sticks there. We now have recently developed oral chelates. You can take them in supplement form, EDTA and others that are quite effective. They work slower than intravenous, but they're quite effective. And over time, they can peel the calcium ions off the inner wall of your artery, and then basically cholesterol floats away and blood flow is fully restored.
That sounds like a whole nother video in itself.
It should be.
Well, I hope that helped answer some of your questions. Starches and carbohydrates. There are many different forms of carbohydrates, I guess the first question is, are all carbs starches or are all starches carbs?
All starches are carbs, but not all carbs are starches.
All carbs are starches, not all starches are carbs.
You got it backwards.
Okay.
All starches are carbs.
All starches are carbs.
But not all carbs are starches.
Okay.
For example, when we think of starchy foods, we think of grains. We think, especially refined grains, white bread, pasta, etc. That would be starchy carbohydrates.
Starch.
However, there are other carbs.
Isn't corn on the cob starch?
Eventually, it's not as refined because it's still a whole kernel. But yes, eventually it becomes a starch grain.
So corn is, after it's cooked, it's starch.
The longer it's cooked, the longer it's processed, the more starchy it becomes.
Okay.
Is
that the best example of a starch as the vegetable?
Yeah, except for grains.
Like what grains?
Well, virtually
Oats?
all grains, but wheats are the worst. Wheat is the worst because
wheat bread is a starch.
Very starchy.
And a carb.
Yes.
Okay.
But there are other carbs that have nothing to do with that. Fruits.
Okay.
Vegetables that are high in fiber. They are all sugar. Sugar's a carbohydrate. It's not a starch.
So all candy is just carb, not sugar. Yeah. Okay. And so what are the best carbohydrates to consume for, I mean, everything in moderation, but what are the best carbohydrates to consume?
The most complex you can find.
Okay.
So that would be whole grains. That would be fresh fruit.
Okay.
That would be your best area. The more refined the carbohydrate becomes, the more they process it, the more it's ground and beaten into a pulp and then into a white powder and then reconstituted. And all of that creates a carbohydrate which converts to blood sugar in minutes sometimes.
And that's a good thing?
And that's not a good thing.
Okay.
Because the more refined your carbohydrates, the faster your blood sugar is going to rise.
And then faster it's going to fall.
Eventually.
Yeah. What are the carbohydrate? What are the dangers connected with carbohydrates in the diet? You know, besides, the obvious one is the weight factor that a lot of people deal with.
Yes.
The carbohydrate intolerance.
Yes. You see, our ancestors, not that long ago, probably 200-300 years, which is very much time, consumed their carbohydrates as whole grains. When they baked bread, it weighed about 9 pounds.
Yeah.
Because it was heavy, because it was whole grain. And all they did was just pound it. But they didn't have, nor did they understand how to refine these grains. Let me tell you something interesting about wheat. You might have noticed, if you're a baker, or if you buy white bread, it says enriched.
Yeah, enriched.
Enriched. This is made with enriched white flour or enriched flour. When they refine wheat into white flour, they destroy all of the nutrients in that grain.
Okay.
All of it. So it basically is a nutritionless, lifeless, starchy substance.
That doesn't sound very good.
It's not very good.
Okay.
So in order to create a marketing...
Oh, they can put some vitamins in it.
They're going to put... So basically, whole grains provide about 16 nutrients. Vitamins, minerals, etc. Okay. So when they take them all out, then they decide, for marketing purposes, that doesn't look very good. So we're going to put 4 back in.
Okay.
And if someone held you up at gunpoint and said, "Give me your money or your life," and you had $16 in your wallet, one for each nutrient, and you said, "Here, man," and then the guy looks at you and you're kind of shaking and he feels sorry for you. So he gives you $4 back.
Yeah.
Would you feel enriched by that experience?
Oh, and then that's why they put enriched on the thing.
If they hadn't destroyed all the nutrients in the first place, they wouldn't have to enrich them.
So what is the safe level of carbohydrate intake then? I mean, if you're carbohydrate intolerant...
Well, that's an entirely different story if you are.
Yeah.
But let's say you aren't.
Okay.
Let's say you don't have any of these metabolic issues. Okay. Then the amount of carbohydrates you should consume directly reflects and depends on the type of carbohydrate. The more complex, the more you can consume safely without gaining weight.
Yeah.
The more refined, the fewer you can consume without a host of potential side effects, one of which is weight gain.
Yeah, and so that kind of just like what the normal thing people say is moderation is everything.
Well, yeah, sure. If a little's good, more is very rarely better.
So that leads me to the next thing, carbohydrate intolerance and calorie sensitive. When it comes to weight loss, there are 2 metabolic types. Those are it. What are the differences?
Well, those are the 2 main ones. There are several subcategories below those, but the 2 main ones are calorie sensitivity and carbohydrate intolerance. For decades, many decades, the American Dietetic Association said the only way to lose weight is to cut calories.
Yeah. And some still believe that.
Oh, many of them still.
You still see it all over social media.
Many of them still believe it.
I even see people ridiculing people that discuss, let's say there's an influencer and they're getting all this great benefit from fasting. And the comments say, all you're doing is calorie restriction. If you would have just done that from the beginning, you would have the same effect. And the people are going like, no, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works at all.
Okay.
And we should discuss fasting in a bit, because that's a very timely subject. But essentially, dietitians used to say everyone is consuming excess calories versus expenditure. That's why you store weight.
Yeah.
Because you're eating more, you're taking more calories in than you're burning.
Yeah.
Well, theoretically, that's true. However, not all individuals have the same metabolism. Let's say, for example, that you are insulin resistant, hypoglycemic, type 2 diabetic. Your problem is with carbohydrates, especially refined ones.
Those 3.
Those 3 specifically.
Yeah.
There are millions and millions of people who are insulin resistant.
Yeah.
And they're not diabetic yet.
Yeah.
And those people will get greater benefit from restricting carbohydrate intake.
Yeah.
As opposed to calorie restriction. Because you can eat 1,200 calories a day. If it's all white bread and sugar, you're in trouble.
Kiss of death, yeah.
Well, if you're carbohydrate intolerant, because your insulin resistance is going to continue to rise to the point where you damage your receptor site cells, and then you're going to wake up one day with elevated blood sugar.
Yeah. And you have a self-test that you can take on your website at Healthy Information. The website is healthyinformation.com, and there's a self-test where you can find out if you're carbohydrate intolerant or calorie sensitive. And you can actually score yourself on it. How long did it take you to come up with that test? 20 years?
Yeah, we've been adding and detracting from it for about 20 years. It all started when I was in the 1970s, when I was into bodybuilding and powerlifting. And for competitive, I never competed more than 3 or 4 times. I did it for health reasons.
Yeah.
But I routinely trained with people who were in high levels of competition. And like many sports, you have to be at a certain body weight.
Yeah.
You have to have, especially for bodybuilders, you have to have a certain percentage of body fat. And it's usually quite low.
So that's where you got to really cut carbs.
That's where you really got to cut carbs. You really have. So what we learned was that some of these guys could go on a low carb diet and drop weight and a ton of weight in a month. Others struggled. It took much longer. And when we started looking at their metabolic profile, we found that those guys that didn't respond as quickly were more insulin resistant.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it was a harder time for them. So this was the evolution of thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, if someone is insulin resistant, then they need to be on a restricted carbohydrate diet more or less all the time.
Yeah.
If they're going to keep their insulin levels under control.
Yeah, I mean, but you still have your cheat day or
Oh yeah, there's all.
If
all,
you can
all
get
those
down
things.
to your perfect weight, you could have multiple cheat days. Then.
Absolutely. So, in essence, if you take our test and you find out that you're more carbohydrate intolerant than calorie sensitive, then we would put you on a carbohydrate restricted diet and
for a limited time.
For a limited time, and then show you how to add carbs back in safely. If you scored more on the calorie sensitive side, then we would, at that point, put you on a calorie restricted program.
Okay, so what is the main reason that people fail on their weight loss journey?
Well, we've isolated at least 10 major reasons why people fail. The number one reason is they're following the wrong diet for their metabolism.
So they should...
They're in fact carbohydrate intolerant, but they've gone to some dietitian who's screaming in their ear about calories, and they go on a 1,400 calorie diet, and then they stop losing weight, and then they go on a 1,200 calorie diet, and eventually they stop losing weight, and then they go on an 800 calorie diet, and now they're starving to death, and they still plateau.
And now they're never going to
lose weight
because it's never going to get the metabolism
right. Their metabolism is going to go into hibernation.
So that what are some of the basic indicators found in carb intolerance and calorie sensitive besides the one you already talked about?
Well, if I look at somebody, and it's only because I've been doing this for 40 years, but if I look at somebody in a restaurant, at an airport, somewhere, and they're overweight,
yeah,
I can usually tell in a very short observation whether they're calorie sensitive or carbohydrate intolerant.
Oh yeah, and this is so interesting to me. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So a person who's calorie sensitive and overweight will not be excessively overweight, 25, 30 pounds. They'll carry the majority of their weight around their midsection. So that means they'll have, normal legs and arms, and the fat is visceral and it's around the midsection.
Yeah.
And likely that person has plateaued, so they're not going to gain very much more weight. They're just going to be there.
Yeah.
If I see somebody who's carrying loose, flabby, jiggly fat from head to toe, they got a fat neck, they got fat arms, they got fat wrists, they got fat legs, they got fat ankles. Their ankles are fat. They're enormous in their midsection.
Or the
arms are all flabby,
yeah.
and then that person is very likely carbohydrate intolerant, because when starches convert to sugar,
yeah,
and the sugar enters the bloodstream, as the sugar rises, the body panics because that's not a very good state to be in. Then the body converts that blood sugar to something called triglycerides. Triglycerides are stored in fat cells throughout the body. When the body converts sugars into triglycerides. It adds 1 molecule of water. Which is why people who have excessive weight due to carbohydrate intolerance and insulin resistance have loose, flabby fat from head to toe.
Got it.
And that's how there are many others, but you can learn more about that from our tests, because those kind of questions you'll be asked during that evaluation.
Oh, that question is on the test?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So why is carbohydrate intolerance such an epidemic in America? And I know we're slowly spreading that epidemic around the world because people are adopting the American diet. But why do you think it's gotten so out of hand in America, where they're saying, because what you're kind of describing is even the kids these days.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the kids have the fat, jiggly arm already, and they're like 14, 15 years old.
And they're insulin resistant like hell. It's just terrible.
And so why has it become such an epidemic? Just because our diet is just, that's what it's turned into?
Our diet is primarily refined carbs.
Yeah.
Especially for young kids.
Well,
they want to go to fast food, junk food, all that, and everything they eat has got white flour on it.
Yeah.
Or in it. Or sugar. Or both.
Well, you know what a good experiment is to do is don't eat any fast food for 2 months, and then go get a hamburger at any fast food place you want, and you realize it kind of tastes so sweet. Yeah. Like the whole hamburger is sweet, but it's just really the bun, probably.
Yeah, but because it's made with such refined carbohydrates that they're 1 molecule away from sugar at that point.
Wow.
And
well, that's the answer. Then.
And to add insult to injury, refined carbohydrates are addictive.
Yeah.
Because when you consume them and your blood sugar rises, eventually the body says, oh no, and then it drops the blood sugar down. And when your blood sugar drops down, then you feel tired,
depressed,
you don't have any energy, you feel moody, and all of that. And so the first thing you do is you run for a candy bar or another sandwich made with white bread.
Yeah, because you need another hit.
That's right.
Like a drug addict.
That's right.